stenciling. So what I got here is a clipboard. Inexpensive one. I think I got it at Dollar Tree. So it's you know, not a super duty, heavy duty one, which is fine, because we're going to be painting it anyhow. And let me get some paint. I'm good on the board. I mean, technically I don't have to because I'm going to be decoupaging it, but it's the paper is kind of thin that we're going to be using, so I want to make sure that it's covered. So we're just going to do like not a super duper heavy coat, but a coat nonetheless. All right. So this is just a, I almost said latex, an acrylic paint. It's kind of thicker. It's, let's see, Master's Touch, which comes from Hobby Lobby. It's their brand. This is light purple. It's a pretty mauve color. So I'm literally just going to paint this whole thing, including the metal on the board. Again, I'm not worried about super like solid coverage. Just going to cover that. So how's everybody been doing? We had a few days, let me know where you're from if you're on. Had a few days of nice weather, and then 24 hours later it's like half of that. What was it, a few days ago? It was like 50 degrees or something. I'm in Northeast Ohio, and you know, it's back to, now we're under winter weather watch again, and I noticed it just started snowing again. Fortunately, a lot of the snow had melted that we had before, and there were some big piles. I live at the end of a cul-de-sac. There was a lot of snow, like, you know, in our yards, because, you know, they come down the street, it's going to get pushed right to the end of the cul-de-sac. But a lot of that has melted away, which I guess is good. So we don't, you know, I don't know how much snow we're supposed to get, but the temperature drops something terrible. But, so Easter is kind of late this year, isn't it? I think it's like April, is it April 21st? I'm not real sure. I think it's April 21st. So we've got some time to start decorating for Easter, but like I said, with this weather being the way it is, it's like I'm ready for spring. I don't know about you all. Anybody here like the cold? Hey, if you end up catching us on replay, please say hello, even on replay, and put hashtag replay. That way I know you were here, and some prizes. I'm going to be picking random names from people who watch my live or on replay. I mean, it doesn't matter either way. And once a month I'm going to draw, depending on the number of people that watched the lives, and this is just starting technically in March. I know it's February, but I'm going to use these last ones here in February too, from tonight moving forward. And send out some Happy Meals. So it could be a finished item I've made. It could be some supplies. You just never know. But you got to say hello. All right, so I'm just doing the one coat and just doing the front. We don't need anything more. So while that dries, let me go ahead and rinse my brush a little bit. You know, I thought I had all my stuff, and I usually have water here already, and I don't, because I just dumped it from stuff I was doing earlier, and forgot to grab a new one, but that's okay. So while this is drying, isn't that a beautiful color? It's like a light purple, mauve pink. Okay, so the next bit of fun we're going to have, after I wipe my hands, because I don't want to get stuff all over the thing we're doing next. I am a very messy crafter. Are any of you messy crafters? I'm a very messy crafter. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to stencil, but I'm not going to stencil with paints actually. I'm actually going to use like drywall compound, spackle. All right, yeah. You can use almost anything. So here we've got some, I like this one because it's not real heavy and it's pink, as you can see. So as it dries, it'll dry white. So then you know that it's dry, which is great. So I just have this little like banner. It's like a heavy cardboard. It was already cut like this. I got these really cheap on sale just a few days ago at Hobby Lobby, I think it was. But it was advertised or in the package like for a banner, which makes sense. It's got the holes, but I'm just using them for whatever. I've used a couple already. So we're going to use this here, and I've got a putty knife. Here's the stencil I'm going to use. I thought this was really pretty for Easter. This is from a pack of stencils from Essential Stencil, who I really love their stencils. Let me show you the pack. I am an affiliate with them, so if you decide you want this, you can go on. I can put the link in later in the comments to Essential Stencil. Comes with these 3, if you can see it. And you can get 10% off if you want to order it and stuff by using my code. Now, I would say if you've never used like the compound, because it is thick and sticky, that you might want to tape your stencil down to the surface that you're going to be stenciling for drywall. But I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm gonna risk it. I'm a risk taker, and I'm gonna go ahead. And so we're literally just taking some of this drywall compound, don't need a whole lot, and we're spreading it over the stencil. Much like you would if you were patching holes in a wall, okay? But you're going over where the stencil cuts are. All right. And we're just spreading that around generously, okay? Now, your goal is to obviously make sure where all the cuts are that you have some. Now, I want it to be a little thicker where the flowers themselves are, so I'm kind of scraping away though from the cross itself. Okay, if you can see that, I'm using the flat side to take a little extra away from the cross. Let's wipe that off onto there. And you very carefully, once you see it's all covered, you want to lift it straight up. Okay, don't bend it. Look at that. Okay, but this has got to dry. And it really doesn't take long. If you let it just air dry, I'm going to say an hour, maybe. Of course, this is real thick. I mean, it actually looks pretty just like that, doesn't it? But there's texture. If you can see the profile, you can see that sticking out some. So we're going to put this to the side to dry, but earlier I went ahead and I did one so that it would be dry for us, so we wouldn't have to wait for that. So there it is, dry. And if you look, you can see that it's a little more white than the one that we just did. Okay, so I'm gonna, like I said, put that to the side. I'm gonna scrape some more of this compound off, and it washes off amazingly easy. I'm just gonna spray with some water so it doesn't start to set up on here while we're finishing our project. Okay, and we can put that right back in there. If you have drywall paste and it's like getting dried out in general, your container, you can add, like take some out that you think you're going to use and then add just a little bit of water to it to thin it out. Okay, let's see, we'll put that to the side. Let me just stick this here and we'll spray that so, like I said, that doesn't settle there too much. Okay, so moving on. I think I'm going to go ahead and dry this a little bit more with my heat gun. Oh, I think my battery on my glue gun died. So let me put it on the charger because we may very well need that, I think. All right, so I'm just going to use this heat gun to finish drying this paint. I think I'll put this here because on the thicker parts, it's still just a little soft. Not too much, but again, I'd rather make sure. So kind of do a 2-for-1 here. Alrighty. So again, this is just some drywall mud that I stenciled with. Pushed it through with a putty knife and that was that. All right. Anybody take any vacations this winter, like to warm places, or are you a lover of the cold? Generally, I don't mind the cold. I hate it when it's like really windy and it cuts right through, like makes your face hurt. It's terrible. And generally, I don't mind the snow, but it's been long enough now. I'm ready for spring. Flowers, birds, these poor critters, birds and whatnot. Shoot, a couple weeks ago, we had a warm spell. It got up to like 60 or something. We literally had mosquitoes come out of nowhere. It's like, where in the heck, how did these things just suddenly show up? It's insane. Okay, so now we're gonna decoupage. So on this board, I've got this gorgeous rice paper. So you can decoupage with a lot of different things. It doesn't have to just be tissue paper or cardstock or whatever. Or something technically named decoupage paper. This is a rice paper, which is technically a decoupage paper. This is from Prima, okay? This particular one is called Floral and Dream. You can get this like online. Amazon might have it. Some of the Etsy shops carry Prima. You can go right to their site and order, but isn't this beautiful? Now this one is nice because usually I decoupage more often than not with tissue papers. But this one's a little heavier. Kind of reminds you of like, you might be able to kind of see some of the fibers in there, like a coffee filter almost, okay? Napkins, have decoupaged with napkins. I did another clipboard a few days ago and used a napkin. It was real cute. Maybe I'll show you that later. So what I'm gonna do, Mod Podge, good old fashioned regular Mod Podge. I would not recommend using like the glossy, only because you don't need that extra slip, if you will. So I'm just gonna take this right out of the container. Gonna be kind of generous with this and spread it on. This still reminds me of like grade school when I smell it, because it kind of smells like Elmer's glue. And Mod Podge, technically, it's a sealer and an adhesive. So it serves many, many purposes, and it's kind of weird if you think about it. Well, how can it be an adhesive and a sealer? Because when it dries, it literally has sealed the project and is obviously no longer tacky. But while it's wet, it's tacky. Do y'all, anybody here remember like in school, I'm probably really dating myself, putting like Elmer's glue on your hands and peeling it off? It was so fun. And yeah, if you're wondering if you can use Elmer's glue to Mod Podge, yes, you can. You can. It's not quite as sturdy, I guess you could say. And there's a lot of other mediums out there that you can use, but I would say the most used product is probably Mod Podge if it's intentional for specifically going to be used for decoupage. And they have a ton. They have sparkly, which is really pretty too. I did some eggs last year, decoupage some wooden eggs and used the sparkle over it for Easter. Okay, so we got our Mod Podge on there. Let me just sit this here. So now we're going to take the paper, and I'm not going to lay it like in the center here because I want to try to salvage as much paper as I can. So again, the difference between this and the tissue paper is this is a little more forgiving. Tissue paper, once you lay it down, you're kind of done. Okay, I've got it. The only challenge here really is because of the clip up there. But like I said, I want to try to salvage as much off the edge of this paper. Okay. Okay, so I've got it under the clip. Now for me, I'm not worried about it being totally flat and smooth. I like it wrinkled. It kind of lends that more vintagey look to it. Aged, vintagey, whatever you want to call it. And we're just smoothing this down. You can use a brayer, which is like a rolling pin type of thing, you know, like you roll it like a paint roller, but it's a hard surface. You can use a flat, like spatula, not a spatula. Oh, I can't think of the word, you know, this thing to just help smooth it a little bit. And you want to just get to the edges. And usually, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of times I don't get enough Mod Podge on my edges of my surface and it starts to come up, but that's okay. Is that paper not gorgeous? Look at this. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm just gonna dry this a little bit. Okay. It pretty much it dries really quick, especially once the paper's on there. But I want to make it just a little bit easier to take off the edges that's hanging over. Oh my goodness. It's gonna be hard to cover this. Like, it's so pretty, I almost don't want to cover it. All right, so I just dried that a little bit. So there's this excess, right? So we need to figure out a way to get that off. And you can cut it, or you can sand it. I usually opt to sand, but since I've got a big piece here, I'm gonna cut that first and then I'll go ahead and sand. All right? And you can use a craft knife, scissors, whatever you got on hand. You could tear it, which I do that a lot too. So these strips I'll hold on to for like a small project or to use little bits and pieces, you know, and decoupage them with other patterns that all coordinate together. They're nice for art journaling. So I'm going to go ahead and take my sanding block and I'm just going to sand those edges. Okay, this is a little sturdier than like the napkins and stuff. I apologize for the sound and the dust. And I'm just going around, and as you can see, I'm just sanding like away from the board so that it kind of tears at the edge. Alrighty. And all the way around. And I'll keep this little piece here too, even though I didn't cut it first. I think that's perfectly fine. Like if this was tissue paper, I could have easily torn it, but this has that little bit of fiber to it, and I didn't want to risk tearing it and having it tear right back onto the board. So look at that. Easy peasy, right? All right, so we've got that on there, and yes, I see that little lip there, but that's okay, because you know what? We're going to be putting an embellishment on there, so it won't matter. So now we're going to do the top coat, and this is just to kind of seal it, and we're going to go right back on with the Mod Podge. Now this layer, I try not to make it quite as heavy as the first one. I'm going to go up underneath this clip here. Apologize for my hands being in the way. All right, let's see there. And I'm not worried about that clip like sticking to it. The nice thing is, it's got a built-in hanger right there, right? All right. This paper is so gosh darn pretty. It's purdy. You know how you spell that? How do you spell purdy? P-U-R-D-Y. Okay. A lot of times I'll just, like on a larger, I mean this isn't huge, but it's not a small surface either. I'll just pour out the Mod Podge, but I'm trying to be a little bit more professional. Of course, if you know me, you know that's not my norm. Like I already said, tend to be a messy crafter. Like I have my table and I have my mat and then I have another mat, but I still put down the paper bag because the Mod Podge, like I said, of course, is sticky and I don't want it all over my mat, and then I'm going to keep picking at it and it's just going to kind of probably make me feel a little nuts. After I'm done with this step, I'll take this paper bag out from under here. Speaking of the paper bags, when it comes to sanding, now not so much like the sanding that I just did to get off the excess rice paper, but you know how sometimes you have a surface that you painted and you just want to distress it a little bit. You don't want to like break it down a whole lot, like totally wipe the paint away, but you just kind of want to make it look like it wasn't just fresh painted, which is, again, kind of an oxymoron, right? We do all this work just to make it look old, but it's pretty. Brown paper like this is perfect. You could tear a piece, you know, like this, and just like crumple it up and use that like over your surface. Maybe have a wood block and you made a sign and you just want to kind of sort of distress it a little bit, or you don't have sandpaper, or the sandpaper you have is too rough. Works great. Okay, so let's help this dry a little bit. And really this project overall, once you decide what you're going to do, because that's always what takes me the longest, because I want to do so many things. It's like, well, which one do I want to settle on? Really doesn't take long. You see, we base coated the clipboard, and then we did the mod, you know, help it dry. We stenciled onto our little board here, our cardboard banner, and then while that's drying, we went ahead and put our rice paper onto our board. And now we're just drying it a little bit. Now I'm going to let that dry a little bit more by itself because we're going to work on the cross that we stenciled. But let me go ahead and move this. See, even though that was the matte Mod Podge, it's not totally dry down here, but there is a slight satiny type sheen to it. So if you use the gloss, that's more so. And then if you were to want to try to go paint on this, even though we're not painting on it, but we are going to be putting a finish on it, it won't hold as well. Let's say you wanted to stencil on this directly. Okay, so this here, now you could leave it if you wanted. If you liked it all white like that, that's perfect. You could also, if you wanted to make little batches of your drywall compound and color it with paint ahead of time and stencil, you can do that. I like to just do the stencil, get it done. And I'm still going to come back with some paint and just lightly dry brush on here. So kind of the same technique as stenciling, but not actually stenciling. And so let me grab my paper out. And we're just going to use a few complementary colors that were in the board here. And let's see, make sure, yeah. I think I'm going to do the flowers a pink color. And this is Folk Art Plantation Rose. So sometimes when I'm doing just a little tiny bit of stenciling like this, I'll try to use one brush. And I'm only using 3 colors, so I'm going to start with the lightest color and go forward. And I'll show you what I mean. You could also use like your inks, like from an ink pad, and dab your brush and use those. All right. So when you're dry brushing, you just put a little bit of paint in a white, like a stencil brush this is a standard round stencil brush. But you can also use, especially if it's something small, like this is just a white bristle brush. Essentially the same hair, but it's a filbert. It's called a filbert shape. It's kind of a flat, slightly curved edge. I'll use those too, okay? Now, if you didn't feel like, if you were nervous about stenciling on this without actually using the stencil, you could place it back over it after you clean it off. Now, mine's all wet, so I'm just gonna freehand it and hope for the best, okay? Not gonna use a lot of pressure. So if you look here, and I'm gonna start out light, and you're gonna get I I almost took too much paint off of there. You're going to get little edges because I didn't break down the like little bit of raised part from the drywall compound. So I'm just kind of, I'd rather start with a light touch and build the color than too heavy and think, oh no, now I need to take some of that color away, okay? So the raised area I'm just using as my guide for where I need to paint. So we've got a couple of flowers here. And I'm not really worried about the edges, like the sides of the raised area. That's what kind of gives it interest. You know, if you are, you can use a smaller brush, or again, you could place the stencil right back over here, over this, and let me see if it's dry. No, it's not. But you would just place it right back on here, and then it'll help keep your color right on the stencil part. Okay, and then in this flower that's open, I'm putting a little bit of color on the brown too to fill it in. Okay, but you could do it however way you like. So I mentioned about using the same brush. I'm actually not going to on this one, but I will on the other. I'm going to use this light green. Where did here it is. Use this light green. Come on. And yes, I'm putting this right on my paper towel. It's only a little bit. I don't need much, so why waste a whole plate, right? Okay, same thing. I put some paint in my brush there. And I'm going to do the cross in this light green. And I'm kind of just brushing in one direction to catch the drywall compound that I stenciled on here. I'm not worried about the little bit that might get around it, like I guess you could say shading or coloring outside the lines, so to speak. That would probably be pretty to fill in this with the green. Oh, should we do that? I think I might. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that. A little creative, you know, options. Exercising my creative choices or whatever the word is. So if you're a creator, do you like to have everything all planned out, or do you have it planned out and sometimes change as you go along? Or tell me. I think you guys are witnessing what I tend to do. I have it kind of thought out, and then as I get going, sometimes it changes midway. You know, maybe something didn't take or go quite the way I had anticipated or whatever, and I'll change it up. Or, you know, in this case, I think I want a little more color inside the cross. So that's what we're going to do. So even though I'm still dry brushing, I'm not blatantly painting inside of there. I'm just lightly going on the outline of the cross with the green, and then brushing it inwards to give some color in there. So the edge still has, the outline has color, and I'm not doing it solid in there. We're just kind of still letting it go parts that are darker than the other. Again, kind of lends to that vintage vibe. Okay. And I think I'll put a little bit of this green in the middle of this big flower here, so the little bud is more pronounced. All right, so this darker green I'm going to use on the leaves in there, and I just brushed out a lot of the light paint, green paint that was in this brush, and I'm going to use the same one for this, for the leaves, since it's a darker green. That way you don't have to worry about having, you know, even if you were using like 6, 7 colors that you wanted to stencil with, you don't have to have 6 or 7 brushes. If you know what colors you're going to be using, start with your light one or your smallest area, whichever way you look at it, and then kind of you keep running your brush over your paper towel so it looks like, whoops, all the paint's pretty much out of the brush, and then you'll load it with the next color you want to use, kind of brush it out, load it again, and it's almost like you're washing it with that new color. Okay? And like I said, I just wanted this to be very soft and springy and sweet. Whoops, accidentally went over that flower. That's all right. You can make it look like it was accidentally on purpose. And a little bit more dark green there. Okay, so that green isn't much darker than the first one, but it's enough that it just lends a little something extra to the, okay, I don't know with the light. So you can still see the white compound there. All right, but it gives that frame, and then you could feel that texture, which is something me personally, I just really, really like that. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is take a little bit of this dark green and dry brush around the edge of this tag, just to kind of frame it. So what I mean by that is the brush is just like it was when I was doing the inside, but I'm gonna go down from the edge a little bit, and it's kind of framing it a little bit. And I'm dragging it ever so slightly. So there's not a whole lot of paint in the brush. I mean, if you want a lot, you could do that. And then as I go down, think of this hanging up like this, and then like from age and time, it just like kind of gets that aged look. So I'm very lightly, it's not a whole lot of color, it's not super obvious, but it is there. And it just kind of helps soften the whole thing. Okay, and here, I'm going up from the edge. And then I'm kind of running over and applying a little more pressure to kind of give a little bit of more lines. So can you see that? It's just that little bit. That light's so bright, I don't know how much, well, you can see that. Okay, so move that to the side. Okay, that's almost dry. Let me hit this with the heater again. This part down here was still a little wet. And that's dry. Hey, if you jump on, please say hello. Let us know you're here. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, so now what we're gonna do, yeah, I gotta stand up for this just so I can reach them. Let me put these paints aside here. Okay, so I'm trying to decide, I have this distress ink. It's like a raspberry preserve. Let's put a little bit on the back. And this is just to, again, add a little more of that vintagey aged look to our project. So let's do a little bit here to kind of test it. Ooh, that's pretty. Can you see that? What do you think? That's pretty. We can maybe do a little bit of both. Okay, I think and this is just an ink pad. It's just a mini one, but you can use these obviously for stamping, which I do that too, but use them as like a distressing ink. Okay, so this is vintage photo, so it's like a brown, just, okay, can you see that? I'm just putting that on the edges, again, to add that antique, vintage, distressed look. I like it to look aged. And then there's not a ton of wrinkles in this, but the rice paper had some fibers. So what I'm gonna do is just very lightly run this over the whole pad. And it's just gonna pick up on the sections where it was raised a little bit. Okay, what do you think? Oh, that's so pretty, but see how that just softens the edges? Doesn't look quite as stark, if you will. Now we could have sanded more and broken, like knocked down, if you will, sanded off more of the tissue paper. but I think this is a little more efficient and actually a little prettier too. So that's the vintage photo, but let's go back with, what was the color on this one again? My goodness, Seedless Preserves, a really good name for it. It's about the same as this like mulberry. That's kind of what it reminds me of. And I'm just gonna put a few spots with this one. You know, like you really are gonna have to look to find it, but it's there. And same thing, I'm using a very light touch and just kind of going down the board. Can y'all see that? And I like to put a little extra on the corners because normally, like if you have a paper or photo or something, the edges tend to get, and the corners get a little more tattered, right? Like us, the tattered willows. And I'm gonna do the same thing on our pennant. So I'm just taking this, they do have, and I do have some somewhere, I just was too lazy to dig them out. It's like a little pad, like a little round pad, and you could dab it on here and then put it on here. It gives you more control. But like I said, I was frankly a little too lazy to dig it out. So I'm just using a light touch and going just on the edges mostly. Got a little out of control there, but that's all right. Okay, again, see how that just helps soften it? And I'm very lightly letting it go over the raised part. Very, ever so gently. Okay, you could do it as much or as little as you want. Okay. There, what do you think? And then we'll do the same thing with the mold, I'm calling it mulberry. And that's just to add that little bit of that burgundy-ish, mulberry, whatever it's called. Oh, that's pretty, guys. What do you think? Isn't that pretty? Love it. Okay. So, you don't want to overdo it. Sometimes I have a hard time stopping, but we're not done yet. So what I have here, this is mica spray, and it's just a little bit of a shimmer, and it's got a ball in there, and you just shake it up to mix it up really good. And this is by Tim Holtz Ranger, just like the inks are. I love all their stuff. All right, this one is tarnished brass. And all I'm doing, I'm just kind of going back because sometimes you don't know how much is going to come out. And this is like almost like little watermarks is what it's going to do. Oh, get the first spray out. Ah, come on. Why isn't it spraying? Come on now. I don't know if my little straw's connected. Poo-poo. Do I have another one? Well, I have a different color. I have bronze. I don't think I want bronze. Let's do the pewter. Hopefully this sprayer will be working. Okay, it is. It's kind of pewter, kind of a grayish silver. Not the one that I wanted. I wanted the bronze, the more like brown. So I'm just spraying this, and this is just gonna, again, it's just gonna get those like watermarks and a little bit of shimmer. And I'm gonna put some on here as well. It's gonna be more noticeable here. Okay. There. And we're gonna let that dry, but this is just a wax, and I'm just using my finger, and I'm gonna put this on the clip here so it doesn't look as pink. It's a bronzy wax. And see how I'm just rubbing that in there so it kind of helps age that a little bit. And I'm just gonna clean my finger off by wiping it on that clip. Again, that's gonna have, we're gonna be putting a bow on here. Ooh. See what a difference that made? Just kind of gave it that little more aged, like you still tell there's a rose color under there, but it's not like stark, brand fresh, new painted. All right, so we have now we're ready to be putting this thing together. Let me put the lid on this. This stuff lasts forever. I don't know if I've ever put a tool in it besides my finger. All right, let's dry this a little bit so we can wrap her up. Got a few bigger splots on here, but that's all right. I love these heat tools. It cuts the time down so much. Remember many years ago when I was crafting a lot before I took a very long hiatus while raising kids and working full time, still working full time, but wasn't able to craft much. I mean, a lot of this stuff wasn't around. Like I would use paint and splatter a lot. That's what these mica sprays essentially does without you having to do it on paintbrush and roll it. I'll still do that sometimes for certain looks that I'm going for. Okay. All right, that's almost dry there. All right, perfect. All right, I want to show this to you now that it's dry. I'm hoping the camera will catch it with the light. Can you see the little bit of shimmer, like water spots there? It's so pretty. And then on the card, like it's there, but it's not crazy. And again, you could do as much or as little as you want. So let's put that aside. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we could do this several ways. The other one I did, I hung the tag, and so it had free movement. Or we can glue it, or we could glue it, but like with stickies under there, so it was kind of mounted. Initially, I thought maybe I would go ahead and mount it, so to speak, with like the sticky, you know, the tabs that are kind of thick and sticky. But this is so pretty. I think I want to give it movement and let it swing so like you can see this. There's some beautiful script there and the flowers. Like I'm seriously almost having a hard time putting this on, but we're going to, because that part we planned and we're going to stick to the plan. So all I'm going to do, grab some jute, or not some jute. I have some like raffia. I thought I had it on my desk, but I don't. I have stuff for the bow. So let me grab that real quick. I see a couple people jumped on. I appreciate, welcome. Please say hello. Let us know you're here. Okay. So this is, it looks like a flat ribbit. Oh, hi, Nan. Okay. This is a raffia ribbon. It's nice and flat. So I'm just going to cut a short length of this. And I'm going to tie it right onto the pennant. I think I'm going to do like a knot to hold it on there. Is Jamie out there? Well, none of my comments are showing. Golly gee, let's go. Oh, hi, hey girlfriend. Hi, Kim. Hi, Janie. I'm sorry. I'm such a goof. I didn't have my thing scrolled down, so I didn't think I was getting any. I didn't see the comments. So sorry, guys. It's taken me all the way to this point. Happy to have you here. Happy to have you here. Just a reminder, if you're not on my text service, please just text TTW for the Tattered Willows. Text that to 440-298-2748. I'm gonna have to knock this again. That way, when I do go live, I can text you and let you know if I'm going live or if there's any specials going on, anything like that. And again, that's just between you and me. I can do group text, but it only goes, if you respond to even a group text, it only comes to me. My battery's low on my phone. Oh. we'll be done before it dies. Okay, so that took a few more knots than I had anticipated. All right, so I think, yeah, I wanted to do it this way instead of totally tying it around the edge. So let me know what you guys think. Send some hearts if you are liking what we're doing tonight. If you think this is something you'd like to do. Sister, how was your, oh, Cousin Denise. Fabulous. Nice to see you too. How was your vacation, Janie? My sister, she is like the cruise queen. She's been back for a little bit, but she went with one of her girlfriends. Isn't that pretty? That would be pretty just left like that. Here, let me swipe this off of there. Okay, isn't that cute? Hey, Kim. All right, so we've got that there. Now we're gonna make just a real simple bow. And what I just wanted to do colors that were gonna complement what was on here. I don't want to take away from like the board, the flowers, the colors there. So just gonna do a real simple, like messy bow, if you will. I thought this was pretty. Whoops. I don't know if I think I'll only do one of these. And just gonna lay this down. And you can use, I obviously cut this ahead, just whatever length you want. It does not have to be perfect. I love this, isn't that pretty? So that helps add to that vintage look, aged. I've even taken ribbons before and used like the, you know what I put around here, the ink pad that I distressed it with, and gone on the edge of ribbons before if I wanted them to look a little bit older. So all I'm doing, I just literally stack those. You can, you know, do them like this. Usually I'll cut like 2 of each one and XXX. But this one, I don't want to take away from the board. This is really just to, again, soften it a little bit. So I just laid them on top of each other and I'm pinching them in here. And then I'm going to get a zip tie. Zip ties are our friends. And bring it together with the zip tie first. Okay. Whoop. Or maybe not. Nan, how's the weather down in Naples? Huh? Yeah, one of my bestest friends ever from school. Nan, love her to pieces. Oh, I got that a little crooked, but that's okay. You guys are probably saying, boy, she says that a lot. That's okay. It is okay. You just roll with it. One thing we tend to do, we tend to be very critical of our own work. And like if we showed it to somebody afterwards, they didn't know what we were quote unquote going for. In the 80s all week, oh my gosh, it's snowing. It was like 55 degrees here 2 days ago. And it's like 20 now and snowing. All right, let's cut that little tail off. And I'm gonna like fishtail the ends of these, and being that I kind of made them uneven, I will even it up. So you could fold it in half and do it at one time. Makes it easier. Fishtail, chevron, make it a V, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to do that with each of them. Those two I just left folded together. And you don't have to do this, and actually more times than not I don't do this. But since I had to trim it anyways, I figured, well, what the heck, I might as well go all fancy on it. Okay. And yeah, this side's a little longer than the other side because I didn't get my zip tie right in the middle. All right, so we've got that side. Now let's do this side. Alrighty. Let's see. Denise, how have you been doing, cousin? If you're still on here. I saw it was Dylan's birthday today. I wished him a happy birthday. Can't believe he's 30 already. Where's the time gone, right? Where has the time gone? Okay, let's see. Yeah, gotta love Northeast Ohio is right. All right, so there's our very, oops, I forgot one there. Stray bird. Okay, so we've got this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut another length of this raffia here, because I don't want that black showing there from the zip tie. So I'm just putting this around to cover it, and I'm gonna tie it first. And let's see here if my glue gun's battery is charged. Okay, give that a second. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this through our board, and then we're gonna tie this right here. And even though I'm tying it, I'm still gonna secure it a little bit more so with some glue. I need those wipes. Baby wipes really are the best thing for, like, for cleaning your hands off and surfaces. I use them a lot of times when I sand stuff, and to wipe off like the board or whatever. Okay. Okay, so now I'm just gonna adjust that bow a little bit. I think I want, yeah, like that. So I had two pieces of the lacy one, the like thin, stiffer lace, so that they could go either direction. But then otherwise, in the pink, again, it doesn't really matter. You do whatever makes you happy. Okay. So what do you think? Now, I did have some greenery here, but I don't think I want to use it. What do you guys think? Thank you. And see, the pink in the bow just picks up the lighter pinks here, and in the flowers. Isn't that lovely? And you know, if you really wanted to, I mean, this doesn't have to be just for Easter, obviously. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a cross out all year long, but you could also take the bow off and or take this off. You could cut it. You could always put a new string if you want to just leave it that way. It'd be really pretty too, like adding some greenery with some boxwood. Wouldn't that be pretty hanging down like that? Or we could add a little greenery like that here and stuff. That would be pretty. What do you guys think? I don't know. I mean, like, I like it, and I like it the way it is. So I tend to sometimes not know when to stop. So maybe we'll do that and put some greenery on the next one I do. Because remember, I stenciled this one earlier, which is pretty much dry except for right in the, so I still have another one to do. So there's that. Okay, I'll have to, I would normally just, my battery, it needs charged more. I would put just a little bit of glue to keep this from sliding. There's nothing wrong with it sliding, but I'd like it to stay in place a little bit more. So I'll do that afterwards. So friends, what do you think of this project? Multimedia, we use several different, we use paint, we use drywall compound, Mod Podge, rice paper, decoupage paper, whatever you want to call it. We use distress ink, paint obviously, and some wax even, and all good to go. And this would be great just propped up on a shelf, or if you wanted to hang it, you could, you've got the little clip that comes right off from the clipboard and you can have your little hook. I like those, I think it's oog ones that you could put in. So it's like a nail, but it's decorative on the end, so you don't just have this nail head sticking out for something like this if you were hooking it on there. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me. Please go ahead and text TTW for the Tattered Willows to 440-298-2748. That way I can add you to my texting service and let you know when I'm going to be on here. All right. It would definitely give it a different look and still look great. You talking about the greenery, man? Yeah, I think the next one I do with the other board, I'll probably add some greenery so they're not all identical. Okay. Thanks everybody for jumping on and hanging out with me, and look forward to seeing you again. Bye.